What's up, guys? In this video, we're going to talk about common questions that your limited partners, your potential investors are going to ask you. So obviously when you're meeting with a limited partner, they can ask you all sorts of questions. We're just going to go over some common ones today and things that you should be ready to answer and talk about. Obviously, first and foremost, anything that you bring up in your pitch, like anything at all, like you need to have logical rationale behind everything you do because they're probably going to ask about it. The who, what, where, when, and whys of your fund. You need to be able to articulate a good answer. Why are you doing this fee structure? Or, what is your target, portfolio allocation, or how many properties, or what's the average duration? So basically just anything about your, anything that you bring up in your pitch is going to be a commonly asked question. I know that's pretty obvious, but just need to cover it to make sure. Now, so I was actually listening to a podcast the other day. It was TIP, We Study Billionaires. It's a great podcast. It goes through the, fundamental stock analysis and Bitcoin analysis. I really like it. But they brought on this guy named Anthony Scarmucci, and he's kind of an asset manager, Skybridge Capital, a couple $100 million in AUM. The host of this podcast asked him, he said, "Hey, how do you invest your money?" And he says, my investors actually ask me that all the time. He said 85% of my wealth is invested in my own funds. And then the other 15% is, with a financial advisor just to help me, manage short-term liquidity. It's like, I don't invest a dime of my own money, not into my own funds. And he said something that I really actually quite love. He said, I don't invest any of my own money because it wouldn't be fair to my LPs. I'm going to say that again because I think it's so important. It wouldn't be fair to my LPs. So he's basically saying, like, any investing activity outside of focusing on what he's managing in his fund, that's probably taking a higher priority than his funds, and he just doesn't like that. So, and I think too many people get carried away with focusing on their own return, especially emerging fund managers and their own money that they're going to make. But your undivided attention should be to, growing that pooled investment vehicle. There's nothing stopping him, Anthony, from trading his own money or investing it how he wants. But I think it really aligns interests and shows a limited partner that you are fully on board, you are fully committed, and you're ready to go. So just be ready for an investor to ask you about, how you invest your money. Another thing that, investors will probably ask you about, and it's funny, everyone, you should have a good team. It's expected that you do. It's expected that you're mitigating risk. It's expected that you have an awesome opportunity. It's expected that you've got competitive fees. All of those things are expected. The one thing that I would say is the single most important thing when investors are, deciding whether or not to invest with you is just your character. Right? Who are you? These are long-term engagements. It's not a quick transaction when people are allocating to funds. It doesn't happen overnight or buying a security system and you'll never see them again. These are partnerships for life. So investors will, often ask about your personal life and, what you do, and they want to get to know you. A good thing that you can do is, instead of just meeting with them and pitching them and asking for money, do activities with them that allow you to get to know each other. Take them out to dinner, take them golfing, take them to sporting events, go do other, activities with, the different allocators. And I think that will allow them to get to know you and who you are and how you live your lifestyle. So they're not just looking at, these core things in a deck. They're looking at, does this guy take care of his physical body? Does he manage his relationships with others? That's one thing. Recommendations, especially at the institutional level, people will ask for references. Who's a client that you've worked with before? Can I get their contact information? And depending on, the thoroughness of the due diligence of the, investors coming in, it can be pretty extensive sometimes. So You just want to, have your best feet forward and, be ready for anything. Another question that you'll likely get asked about, maybe not everyone, these are just common questions that people like to drill on, that you should know the answer to, right? Let me ask you this question, who is your biggest competitor? Okay. Like, you should know the competitive landscape. Like, why are they your competitor? Oh, because maybe they have the same geographic interest, the same asset, the same style, the same whatever strategy. Okay, great. Who out of all of your competitors, which one would you invest with? And then, be able to have a rational answer explaining why. And then to go take it a step further, okay, what strengths do you have above this firm, this competitive firm, and what weaknesses do you think you have that they do better? Like, just a total 360 interview about your competitors, but you should know that. You should know your competitive landscape. And something as vague and as like, oh yeah, there's other hedge funds that focus on this, or there's other real estate guys that are doing. No, like, don't do that. Be ready with specific names of who you would personally allocate your money with if you were not starting this fund. So another question that people will ask is, in a pitch deck, people often talk about, their good performance and, how well they're doing and what's going to lead them to making you a ton of money. But rarely do people talk about the circumstances in which it's likely that your strategy will have poor performance. So, what does that circumstances look like? What would that lead to? Is a huge question. Another question is, about your process. Who ultimately makes the decision of, whether to allocate, a portion of the fund to an investment? Either that's a property or a trade or a company. What's the final say? What if there's two managers? Are they going to be batting heads? Like, what happens when people disagree? What does that look like? And who has, like, what criteria do you have that, basically, constitutes an investment? So, and that should honestly probably already be in your pitch deck, but people might, want you to pontificate on that. Another thing, they might ask you about, get really technical on your returns analysis. So, you're targeting a 20% IRR. How'd you get to that number? What key assumptions are attribute to that? They'll ask you about, past experience and case studies and, why certain investments perform better than others. And, what are the biggest risks and how are you mitigating those? And there's just so many different things that, investors will ask you about. You need to be ready for those. And like nothing is more at least for me, nothing is more satisfying than when an investor asks a question and you are able to answer that question with an appendix slide. I think that's an awesome moment that just shows that you are so prepared. You are anticipating the question that they were going to ask, and you were able to not only tell them an answer, because people can BS answers sometimes, right? But that you can show them, and that you were anticipating that. I think it's a very prudent practice to have really good appendix slides, depending on, the nature of the presentation. So obviously every meeting with an investor is different. To just go back to one of those first things that I talked about, like, make sure that at some point in the process when you're trying to raise money, you're able to demonstrate your character and who you are and befriend these potential investors and cultivate a good relationship, because it's more important than just the numbers in your strategy. It's you. They want to get to know you. I hope this video helped you guys. Let me know any other questions that you commonly get. The list is very long. I only covered a few here today, and maybe we'll cover some more in another video. Have a good one.